You're listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. Join us as we explore new frontiers in consciousness, science, and evolution. And now here's your host, Karen Curry Parker.
Edgar Cayce has long been thought as the gold standard of intuitive insights and prophecies. The sleeping prophet, as he was called, was able to channel messages and deep spiritual insights that healed many people on many levels. Cayce left behind a tremendous archive of transcripts and recordings of his private sessions with clients. Through a set of divinely orchestrated events, Dr. Mark Thurston was given the job of organizing and understanding this massive archive of material, giving us the gift of the synthesis of Edgar Cayce's work as well as his own insights to help us ground Cayce's work in our modern world understanding. I find it fascinating that so much of Cayce's work was devoted to helping people discover their life purpose, and that we are still intrigued by the questions of who we are and why are we here. In many of our quantum conversations, we talk to spiritual teachers and leaders who've created systems to help others discover who they are and why they're here. Dr. Thurston and Edgar Cayce shared with us a different kind of message about our purpose, suggesting that perhaps there is no one way or system of self-discovery other than the way that works for you. Your soul is calling you to fulfill your true purpose. This powerful conversation with Dr. Mark Thurston will help you understand how to interpret the signposts that are revealing the answers that your soul is seeking. Hi, I'm Karen Curry Parker. Welcome to Quantum Conversations. Today, I'm excited to talk to Mark Thurston. Dr. Thurston is a director of educational programs at George Mason University Center for the Advancement of Well-Being, where he's worked for the last 9 years. He's got an academic background in psychology, and he directs and teaches in Mason's undergraduate program. He teaches positive psychology, resilience, meaning, and mindfulness. Prior to working at George Mason University, Mark worked for 36 years in Virginia Beach, Virginia, for two organizations founded by Edgar Cayce 85 years ago: the Association for Research and Enlightenment, the ARE, and Atlantic University, where he served as the Director of Academic Affairs for its master's degree program in transpersonal studies. Dr. Thurston is the author of Discovering Your Soul's Purpose, and he's one of the most significant teachers of Edgar Cayce's teachings. And he's released a second edition of this book, Discovering Your Soul's Purpose, to help you use the Cayce teachings in the 21st century to find greater purpose in your relationships, career, and overall mission in life. Dr. Thurston, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me as a guest.
So I want to actually dive in, and I want to dive in from a couple of different points, because I know that you bring your own wisdom to Edgar Cayce's teachings, and I know you also do a beautiful job of sharing his teachings with the world. Let's talk for a minute about soul purpose, because I think this is a big thing that I hear people really questioning and wondering about. I think that somewhere along the way we got confused about, if you do what you love, the money will follow, and if you're not doing work that is an expression of your soul's purpose, somehow you're failing your mission. And, people are really trying to scramble and figure out, what is this whole soul's mission thing? Can you enlighten us on this a little bit?
Well, I think it's a profound word. Just the word soul is a profound word with a lot of nuance to it. And it's traditionally been seen as a word that had a religious context. I think Thomas More's book in the mid-1980s, Care of the Soul, helped us open up our understanding of soulfulness as something that could be spiritual or religious, but also just has a connection to our deepest values and our most authentic self. So the soul's purpose needs to be something that gives our lives meaning, but done with authenticity and a profound connection to our core values.
So here's an adventure I want to go on with you for a minute. So you have a soul, or you are a soul, I guess, and your soul is by nature eternal. It comes back, it does who knows, it goes maybe perhaps other dimensions, has other experiences all over the universe. And then it comes back into this life, in this incarnation, as a different personality, a different expression of the soul? Or is there a difference between your soul purpose and your life purpose? And do these, are these two different things that we need to be aware of? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, in the way I've used the terminology here in this book, and I think it's generally the way Edgar Cayce used it as well, life mission or soul purpose, I was using those as relatively interchangeable terms. And I actually put all the information in regard to reincarnation into an appendix in the book, because I don't think the strategies and the practical steps that I have as exercises in the book require that a person believe in reincarnation.
So what do you think is the most important thing we need to understand about discovering what your soul purpose is? What do you do if you feel like you're lost, you're disconnected from your purpose? How do you find your soul's purpose?
Yeah. So there were nearly 2,000 people who got specific personal advice from Edgar Cayce about this question, about this topic. And these readings, as they were called, were stenographically recorded and typed up. So we have the archival record of basically his spiritual mentoring, spiritual counseling sessions with these individuals. And in my many years working at the Edgar Cayce Center, I had a chance, as part of my job, to be reading these documents. And what I found was kind of a template that he followed as he worked with people. Each reading is a little different, but there seemed to be kind of a pattern or a template. And so a lot of the book is how we can take that same template and apply it in our own lives. And it has 5 steps to it. The first is to clarify our spiritual ideal or our set of core values in life. A second is to do a self-assessment of self-appreciation and identify half a dozen specific talents, skills, aptitudes, and abilities that we feel like we have, and there's this sense that there's something more we're meant to be doing with those gifts. The third step, or in this template, was the creation or the articulation of a first draft mission statement. And I say first draft because I think the discovering process is an iterative one, where we kind of come up with a best sense of how to word this soul purpose statement. But then as we take it out into life and try to apply it, we're going to refine it. And I know over the years my own has evolved. The fourth step is to have a plan, a pragmatic plan for even baby steps towards putting this mission statement into daily application. Maybe through one's job, but even more likely, specific ways that we interact with our community, our family members, the way we treat ourselves. And then the fifth step is to watch for signposts. And there were a number of different indicators that Cayce suggests happen to us more often in life when we're on track with our mission. So that's a kind of overarching strategy that the book follows.
So I'm curious, what are some of these signposts?
So one, he says that there's a specific emotion that more than anything else characterizes a person who's on track with her or his mission in life, and it's joy, feeling of joyfulness. And even said to one person, you will feel more joy if you're living your own life's purpose than you would feel if you were a famous individual who conquered a country or did some great deed. Another is seeing the lives of other people benefiting from our own life. That is to say, everybody's mission has some quality of working for the greater good or for the well-being of others. He suggests that a person who is living his or her mission will feel closer to God. And I mean, the caveat there is everybody's got a little bit different sense of what God means or what the experience of being closer to God would feel like. I like to encourage people to think of an experience of the divine as wholeness. And so if I ask myself, in what way do I most feel a lack of my own wholeness? In what way do I feel broken? The experience of the divine comes as that which kind of fills in that gap or that missing flavor or quality in my life. He said that a person who's living his or her own mission will feel and see purposefulness in life all around him. So if I'm on track with my mission, I see how other people's lives are purposeful or have the potential for purposefulness. So it's not just a private affair. He also suggests that when we're on track with our mission, that the resources we need come to us with right timing. And I think we have to be careful that we're not naive or sort of taking this too simplistically, as if, oh, I'm going to figure out my life's purpose and then the universe is going to drop money on me and make this easy.
What?
But I think when there's a sincerity of really committing to something that's bigger than oneself, that makes use of one's talents and gifts, that the resources do come. And sometimes it's money, but sometimes it's another person or an ally. Sometimes it's more energy. I mean, there's lots of resources that are needed to be successful with our mission.
So I'm thinking about myself, and I'm thinking about the people that I talk to and the struggles that we sometimes have with this concept of purpose. And I think money is a big one. I hear a lot of people say, well, I'd love to live my purpose, but I can't because I need to pay the bills, or I need to, I need to be able to sustain myself and my family. Talk to me a little bit about the role of money and purpose, and how do those two play out? And what do we do if we feel like money is keeping us from fulfilling our purpose? Is that even possible?
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to the first statement you made, the individual who says, I want to live my purpose if only. And I think maybe there's too much of a sense of the purpose being an occupation. Rather than something more thematic about life that could be expressed through occupation, but might have a broad array of ways in which this could be done. So, for example, Edgar Cayce told one woman that her calling or her soul's purpose was to help other people through the difficult transitions in life. Now, she could take that and try to make that into a career. Maybe she wants to be a psychotherapist, for example. But if that's not immediately accessible to her as a realistic career option, there may be other ways in which she could fulfill that purpose in small-scale ways. Just the quality of her interaction with family members and friends, the way she is in community, her volunteer activities, the way she treats herself when she's going through transition times. And when we've narrowed the mission down to just, oh, I'm supposed to be a doctor, that's my mission in life, I think we kind of set ourselves up for frustration.
So where should somebody start if they're really feeling like, okay, I know I'm not on purpose. I'm waking up in the middle of the night with a sense of I'm here for a reason and I don't know what it is. Where should somebody start to get going on discovering their purpose?
Well, the first step that is in this Edgar Cayce template is to clarify your core values, to get a sense of a spiritual ideal for your life. So this is a little different than the soul's purpose. The soul's purpose is going to have to do with doing, and the core values or the spiritual ideal is a little more about being. So I would invite somebody to ask, when I've experienced life in its most beautiful and in its deepest and most profound way, what do I know is true about myself? What do I know is true about life? So maybe in the way that Abraham Maslow talks about how people have peak experiences, but then we don't know what to do with them, or we forget them, or we push them aside. I think we've all had little glimpses of a more authentic way of living, and to perhaps come up with a half a dozen qualities of that state of being that we know resides in us as a potential. I think our dreams can also sometimes give us glimpses of these core values. I think we can work with contemplative practices, whether that's a mindfulness practice or a meditation practice, things that are going to kind of put us in touch with the best within us at a values level. And then I encourage people to start kind of an inventory, and this may take weeks or months of honest self-assessment. What are the ingredients that I bring to the table in trying to reinvent my life? If I look back at my life and see what the key accomplishments have been, what were the talents and skills, gifts, and aptitudes I had to draw upon? And maybe there's a way of first identifying those skills and gifts and then asking myself, what's something different that I could be doing with those same talents? I know they're there. There's evidence from my accomplishments. And now I'd like to attach them to something that has a little bit higher purposefulness to it. Sometimes our friends can play a role here with this. Some people like to go out and get a psychic reading and get advice from a clairvoyant about what their key gifts are. Ultimately, it comes down to picking, I think, 4 or 5 or 6 of these gifts and talents. And that's a manageable number to begin to try to craft or shape the first draft of a mission statement.
I want to shift gears for just a minute, because I think for a lot of people who are seeking and who are spiritually grounded, Edgar Cayce is kind of the holy grail of where you'd like to be in terms of your own spiritual connection or the connections you'd like to have in the world. Tell me a little bit about how it is that you came to play this role as this person who is continuing to perpetuate Edgar Cayce's teachings in the world. How did you get this cool job?
Oh, yeah. Well, yep. As a high school senior, I was very interested in math and physics. I thought I was going to be a scientist. And one afternoon in my senior year of high school, I was watching with my sister the Mike Douglas TV talk show. This was in the late 1960s. And Edgar Cayce's son was on the show. Edgar Cayce himself had died in 1945. But some 21 years later, a book had been published called The Sleeping Prophet by Jeff Stern. And Jeff Stern and Hugh Lynn Cayce were on this show, and I got very excited hearing about this man's work. And I went out and bought a copy of the book and found out there were other books as well, and really began to delve into this material in a very serious way, changed my intended major to psychology. And after I got my undergraduate degree, I moved to Virginia Beach and just took a chance, ended up getting a job at this place. It had about 100 employees. And over the years, I went back to graduate school and kept working for the ARE and had a lot of lovely opportunities to both study the material, try to say and see how it applies to modern times. I've tried to specialize in finding parallels between Cayce's psychology and Cayce's philosophy and other writers and other thinkers, be that Carl Jung or Viktor Frankl or other religious traditions. I think when we look at Edgar Cayce's work in that kind of context, it really deepens and also, I think, validates it in a corroborative sort of way.
I'm just listening to your story, and I'm going through your little signposts here and about finding your purpose. And I'm listening to the synchronicity, step 5, right? And the sense of purposefulness. And did you feel closer to God in this journey?
I have. I definitely have. Occasionally it's happened in sort of spiritual practices, whether it's my dream life or my meditation life, but it's also happened in small group work with people or one-on-one work with people where I really felt more whole, or I felt like something was working through me. And I think, like all of us, we need to have a broad sense of what an encounter with the divine would feel like.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm having a really interesting experience this summer. We have 8 children, and one of our daughters is a first grade school teacher at a very high at-risk school public school in Arizona. And one of her school-based assignments for the summer is all the teachers are being trained in mindfulness, and they're going to be teaching the kids how to become mindful. And I'm thinking about Edgar Cayce, and I think the journey that his teachings have been on, and thinking about the 40s and the 50s and the sleeping prophet, and now thinking about here we are at this at-risk elementary school in Arizona where these children are now learning mindfulness techniques, and how much more integrated over this span of 80 years we're starting to be with these teachings. So I appreciate so much your role in continuing to evolve this teaching. One of the things that
really inspiring, isn't it, to see the opportunity that children are getting?
It's amazing. It's amazing. And one of the things that she said, they had already begun this in the school last year, and these kids soak it up like a sponge because they don't have the doubt and suspicion that I think we have as grown-ups. But one of the things that we talk a lot about in quantum conversations is what's going on in the world right now, and what do we need to do to either serve our purpose in the evolution and the growth of the world, and how do we do that in a way that we can stay centered and grounded and not be frightened or overwhelmed or taken over by some of the energy we see maybe in the news or in the post. Do you have any thoughts on this and advice that you can give people to help them kind of stay aligned with their purpose in this time?
Well, that's something that's on my mind every day. In fact, my summer semester course at George Mason University this year is entitled Mindfulness and Self-Care for the Helping Professional. I have students who are in training to become public school teachers. I have some students who are in the conflict resolution program. I have some people who are going to be working in the business world. So it's an interdisciplinary course, and we've been exploring very specifically how anybody who's going to take on a career that involves working with other people is going to be vulnerable to compassion fatigue and burnout. And there's really some scary statistics about the average number of years that a young graduate lasts in some of these helping professions, and how crucial it is for them to cultivate the capacity to stabilize the mind, to achieve, even for a few minutes a day, a state of equilibrium within the mind, and also to have practices that are self-care. That may be physical health things like getting enough sleep or proper nutrition, but it's also things about having appropriate social support and the things that we need at a kind of mental, emotional level as well. So I think a person needs to have very intentional efforts around this. It's not going to just happen, and there's no pill to take. It's going to take an act of will. I think having colleagues who share one's interest, either fellow students or fellow employees in your workplace, can be really vital. And without it, there's just so many forces of distraction and fragmentation and scatteredness. And it isn't just our smartphones that are doing this. There's just a lot of confusion out there. We've got to cultivate the capacity to discern and sort through too much information and find that which really resonates to what we know internally is authentic and worth listening to.
Very well said. One last question, and this may be a huge question, so you're welcome to just sum it up. In the teachings that Edgar Cayce shared with us, did he talk at all about the future of the world and what's happening?
Well, there were about 24 readings that he gave out of 14,300. They were clearly prophetic readings where he was being asked about future decades in the 21st century. And I would say that overall he had an optimistic point of view in terms of a sort of spiritual rebirth happening for the planet. And he also has some pretty scary things to say in terms of the birth pangs of such a transformation. He spoke of it in terms of earth changes. And my take on this is that in the 1920s and 1930s, when he was talking about it, there wasn't a science of ecology. There wasn't sophistication around weather science the way we have now. And I really think he was picking up clairvoyantly or precognitively on a lot of the climate change stuff that we're only now beginning to really appreciate. And that many of the things that he was predicting in terms of huge crises for the planet were probably the things that we know now as weather and climate change challenges. But overall, he saw this as an opportunity for humanity to sort of rise to the occasion with a much more cooperative spirit, being guided by a sense of our integrated, our shared destiny on this planet.
Beautifully said. I always think global warming is the great equalizer. Dr. Mark Thurston, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Thurston's book, Discovering Your Soul's Purpose, is available on Amazon and other major retail outlets. You can find more information about Dr. Thurston at www.markthurston.com. And if you want to learn more about Edgar Cayce, you can also visit edgarcayce.org. And Cayce is spelled Cayce, so it's a little different than how it sounds. So edgarcayce.org and markthurston.com. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciated these insights. And thank you, too, for the work that you've done and the stewardship that you've demonstrated as part of your purpose in sharing and continuing to share these teachings with the world.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity for this conversation.
You are perfectly configured to know your life purpose. Your life is constantly communicating with you and showing you signposts where you need to go next. When you're living your purpose, joy keeps you on track. Your life begins to benefit others. You feel closer to God. You see purposefulness in life all around, and the resources you need come to you with right timing. This is the way the universe shows you your unique path. And your path is designed to be joyful and easy, something we forget sometimes. The world is calling all of us to fulfill our right place in the cosmic plan. This isn't a journey riddled with struggle and strife. It's a journey that's sublimely and sufficiently supported by the universe. Be who you are. Do what you came here to do, and you will be beautifully supported, and your life will become more joyful, and the world will become more aligned with truth because of you. If you'd like to discover more about the truth of who you are, please visit our Quantum Conversations Facebook page or visit our website, www.quantumalignmentsystem.com, where you can receive your free quantum human design chart and report. You'll also get access to great articles and free resources, including our free weekly global alignment meditation to help you remember how important you are in the cosmic unfolding of the universe. Thank you for joining me for Quantum Conversations. I'm Karen Curry Parker, and I'm cheering you on as you take the first bold steps to living the truth of who you really are.
Thanks for listening to Quantum Conversations with Karen Curry Parker. For more information, visit joyfulmission.com.